All right, we return with another extra reading bit, so if you don't care for this, just go ahead and skip to the next episode of the actual Let's Play. Let's begin by learning a little bit about our country. Not that one. Let's learn about the people of our country. Going through all of our policies, I think, is going to be an episode in and of itself. So, here we go. My cabinet. We know these people, but we'll read a little bit about them anyway. Let's start with our friend Peter Vectern, the current Vice President of Sordland. Peter Vectern is a politician who currently serves as Vice President of Sordland. He is a member of the United Sordland Party and previously served as an MP from 1938 to 1952. Peter is regarded as a charismatic politician, especially known for his laid-back style and charming public personality. In 1938, with the recommendation of Anton Rayne, Peter became a member of the Assembly. He is married to Evelyn Vectern, who became a controversial figure because of her pro-government articles when she was working as a journalist at the Whole Sword Post. Regarded as a centrist, he was among the groups of politicians who supported Ewald Alfonso against Tarquin Sol and campaigned for a change in the party. He was also a leading figure behind Anton Rayne during his campaign in the 1953 elections. He is credited for his large contributions to the campaign and the party. Evelyn Vectern is a Swordish journalist, author, and schoolteacher who is wife of Peter Vectern, the current Vice President of Sordland. In 1953, to help her support her husband in his political career, she ended her career as a teacher of literature at the prestigious Whole Sword State High School. After graduating from Whole Sword State University, Vectern started working as an editor in the magazine Cosmopolite. She married Peter Vectern in 1936. Vectern later joined the Whole Sword Post as a journalist, where she became known for her pro-government articles throughout the late 40s. Simultaneously, she started working as a teacher of literature at the Whole Sword State High School. She was expelled from the newspaper after defending Ewald Alfonso and writing about a conspiracy by the state apparatus. In 1953, she quit her job to support Peter Vectern's candidacy as running mate of Anton Rayne. Ewald Alfonso, a statesman, businessman, and politician who served as third president of Sordland from 1949 to 1953. He was leader of the United Sordland Party from 1946 to 1953. He is particularly famed for winning against Tarquin Sol in the 46th Congress, bringing an end to Sol's domination of the USP. After studying civil engineering at Kings Hill University, he briefly worked in the State Department for oil and gas planning in 1924. He later undertook postgraduate studies on energy planning and management in Arcasia between 1927 and 1929. He returned to Sordland after the end of the Swordish Civil War and started working for the Gassam Corporation. He bought a large portion of the shares of the company after Contan and Partners pulled out and was later elected as its CEO. During the construction of the Sol Dam, he worked as a project advisor, and in 1935 was appointed head of the Department of Energy under Ministry of the Economy. He joined the USP in 1940 and was elected to the executive board of the USP in 1941. Alfonso gained a huge following in a very short time after his campaigns for free market reforms, and in 1946 ran as a candidate for party leadership against Tarquin Sol. There's a lot of air being sucked into my lungs right now, apparently. He won the 46th Congress and became the chairman of the USP. He later ran as a presidential candidate in the general elections in 1949 and was elected president. He was supported by influential figures like Chris Scharr, Konrad Karranty, and Walter Tusk, which are believed to have played a great role in his election as president. His term saw many market reforms that were implemented very quickly in his first year. He privatized several industries, brought tax cuts, relaxed immigration policies, and changed several of Tarquin Sol's authoritarian laws to bring foreign investment to Sordland. However, he was faced with the economic recession of 1951, which quickly proved to be the worst economic crisis in Sordland since the Swordish Civil War. Some claim the ineffectiveness of his economic reforms were the result of a conspiracy by the Old Guard. In 1953, his cabinet resigned after his inability to control the economic crisis. He resigned from politics after losing the party congress against Anton Rayne. Before we go further, let's read a little bit about this Gassam Corporation. One of the largest corporations in Sordland, incorporated in 1925, extracts natural gas. Okay, well, we can read about that when we... No. When we get to the corporation part. Where are we? the Sol Dam? This actually has its own thing. We probably will not... Oh my god. The Sol Dam, also called the Suzerain Sol Dam, is the largest source of hydroelectricity in Sordland. Its construction was started by the order of President Tarquin Sol in 1933 as a solution to the energy crisis that existed in the region for decades. The dam was surrounded by controversy due to the site being home to an old British village called Izam, which would be flooded if the dam were to be built. In the process of the construction, the local people of Izam were forcefully relocated and the village was razed. During the divisive relocation event, many British locals came to protest and tried to stop the construction from starting. In the protests, a soldier fired his rifle which killed the local British man named Watani Ashraf. This event, also known as the Izam Incident, caused turmoil in the region and led to the formation of the armed British resistance movement called the British Freedom Front. The dam opened 3 years after the tragic event, and despite the bloodshed, it proved to be a huge political success for Tarquin Sol in the following years. The electricity output of the country tripled, and the lake that formed was also given Sol's name. Today, it continues to provide Bergia and Nargis regions with electricity. Izam Incident. The Izam Incident was a bloody protest that occurred in 1933. It is largely regarded as one of the foundational movements of the British movement. In 1933, the Sol Dam project, which was proposed as a long-term solution to Bergia's and Sordland's energy problems, began its construction. The construction site was home to an old British village called Izam, which was planned to be evacuated and razed to open the way for the dam. The arrival of the construction workers to the site led to a series of protests by the local populace. The protesters managed to block the construction and continued their protest for 10 days. On the 7th day, a group of military personnel arrived at the scene as a reaction to the protests' increasing size. On the 10th day of the protests, a village elder named Watani Ashraf was shot by one of the soldiers. That caused the protest to turn violent. According to the Radical, the entire group of protesters were killed that day by the group of soldiers who were ordered by Tarquin Sol himself to make sure the construction was underway. Consequently, Izam was razed, and the construction of the dam started soon after. This event led to a period of protests and riots in the region of Bergia. To suppress the riot, the state reacted by taking drastic measures which included one of the most controversial of Tarquin Sol's decisions that resulted in the persecution of thousands of British people. Calling the event the British Genocide, a group of British nationalists established a militant resistance movement called the British Freedom Front. In the aftermath of the incident, the BFF has orchestrated attacks against the Swedish police forces and state buildings in major cities, starting a new period of bloodshed in the region. It was declared a terrorist organization by the government in the same year. Every year, the Remembrance Day of Ashraf's death is widely attended by the British people, who treat it as part of their identity, while others use it as a symbol of separatist sentiment. The BFF, this was the one that got... No. What was the party that was pushed out? I don't remember. It was attached to these people, though. Watani Ashraf was a British carpenter who was killed by Swedish soldiers during his protest against the construction of the Sol Dam. His death and the subsequent chaos that escalated between the protesters and the Swedish soldiers came to be known as the Izam Incident. He became a symbol of the British resistance movement in Sordland. Not much is known about Ashraf other than his work as a carpenter in the village of Izam near Suzerain. According to many sources, he was respected as the village's elder, and many villagers sought his advice. And in 1933, when Swedish authorities came to the village to force the villagers out of their homes, he refused to leave his home. He took part in the protests against Sol Dam, which threatened to destroy Izam by leaving it underwater. He was shot and killed by a soldier on the 10th day of the protests. Following his death, his name became a symbol of British rights. His death is mourned by the British Democrats and the British separatists alike. The BFF was initially called the followers of Ashraf. Okay, that was a bit of a rabbit hole, but we learned a little bit more about Alfonso. Let's learn a little bit about Tarquin Sol. Tarquin, or Colonel Sol, is a military officer and politician who served as second president of Sordland between 1929 and 1949. He is regarded by some Solists as a founder of the Republic of Sordland, since the first years of the Republic between 1923 and 27 were short-lived due to the Civil War. Sol assumed the post in 1929 by ending the Swedish Civil War and taking control of the government under military rule. He is the founder of the United Sordland Party. He is regarded as the most significant and controversial person in Sordland's history. Tarquin was a colonel and the commander of the 6th Army of the Swordish Armed Forces when General Luderin executed a military coup in 1927, which he did not join. Later in 27, civil war broke out between the armies of the Swordish military as well as militant political organizations. Following this, Tarquin Sol and the 6th Army joined the war and managed to win several major battles against both General Luderin and General Rickard. In January 1929, the 6th Army took control of Holsword and started pushing the rebels to the east. Later in the year, Tarquin Sol put an end to the Swordish Civil War, took control of the government, wrote a new constitution, and called the Grand National Assembly back to work. He formed the USP and went to elections with one party and became president of Sordland. His first years saw many developments in Sordland, restoring surpassing pre-Civil War production levels. He invested heavily into infrastructure, healthcare, and police forces. Many forgotten areas of Sordland were provided with services for the first time in their history during Sol's administration. He also addressed the much problematic energy problem of Sordland with the Sol Dam project in Suzerain, which triggered the 33 Izam incident and a long conflict with Bludish separatists. After his first term as president, Tarquin called for elections in 1933 and ran as the candidate in the first ever elections of Sordland with multiple parties, which still resulted in a massive win for Tarquin Sol and the USP. In total, he won 5 elections and served as president of Sordland for 20 years. His later terms saw further economic developments along with an increase in political and racial tensions in Sordland. Many Bludish activists and politicians were arrested, communists were detained for suspected crimes against the state. The media was under his control and censored the opposing voices. Many different political parties entered politics to oppose Tarquin Sol's leadership, and several of them were closed down. In the 40s, the opposition against Sol reached new heights, triggering major protests against him within the USP. In the late 40s, the new reformist wing in the party saw a great increase in its influence and started to challenge Tarquin. In 46, he lost the leadership to Alfonso and resigned as chairman of the USP. He went on to serve as president of Sordland until 1949. After his resignation as president, he moved to reside in Duru Island in the mouth of the Gulf of Nargis. He is currently the only person to hold the title Member of Honor, which gives him total immunity as well as an indefinite right to partake in the Grand National Assembly of Sordland. That is something we do not want. Lucian Gallade. Lucian Gallade. Now that we're actually back to our modern cabinet here. Lucian Gallade is current chief strategist to the president of Sordland. He is a member of the United Sordland Party since 1937 and held various important positions throughout his political career. He worked as a lawyer and CSO at several companies before joining politics as a legal advisor to members of Assembly. He was chosen as a spokesperson of the United Sordland National Committee prior to serving as an advisor to the Interior Minister during Tarquin Sol's last term as president. Lucian is well respected as a successful strategist, especially for his accomplishments in the recent elections. He is one of the most experienced members of the cabinet. Although he's not a famed public figure, he is regarded by many to be an expert on law and media. His quick rise to politics is also bringing more attention to him than before. He was one of the first supporters of Anton Rayne's candidacy in 1953 and credited as the strategist of the election campaign. He eventually became chief strategist to the president after the elections. I'm sure we've gone through some of these people already, but we'll just do it again. Lilias Graf is current Minister of Interior of Sordland. She is a member of the United Sordland Party since the formation in 1929. Before that, she was a staff sergeant in the Women's Army Corps. Then, she served as mayor of Arvery from 1940 to 47 and mayor of Holsword from 1948 to 52. Lilias started her political career as an elected official on Arvery City Council. Her tenure as public advocate saw a reformation of various housing, finance, and security policies. Then she was elected mayor of Arvery in 1940, and her accomplishments in the city brought her nationwide popularity. This prompted Tarquin Sol to pick her to replace the mayor of Holsword. Her policies on urban planning and public education transformed Holsword's economy and boosted her popularity in the capital. She is currently one of the central figures in the United Sordland Party. Lilias is credited for the economic booms in both Arvery and Holsword and known for supporting socially conservative politics throughout her career. She is respected as an expert on urban development and police relations. As one of the most influential supporters of Anton Rayne's candidacy, she inarguably brought with her a large conservative support in the elections. Soon after, she left her position as mayor of Holsword to become minister under the Rayne administration. So maybe we should have listened to her instead and done the Englandian highway project instead, since urban development seems to be her shtick. Okay. Simon Hole, politician and businessman who serves as Minister of Economy, Commerce, and Energy of Sordland. He is a member of the United Sordland Party. Hold on a minute. Urban planning, public education. What else does she do? Police relations. You know what? We're gonna do a little bit here. Urban planning, police, education. Start taking notes here. Finance and security. Okay. Simon Hole is a politician and businessman who serves as Minister of Economy, Commerce, and Energy of Sordland. He is a member of the United Sordland Party and co-chairman of the National Business Council. As former chairman of the Central Bank of Sordland, Simon is known to possess great influence over the economy of Sordland and is regarded as one of the top experts in Sordland on financial matters. He was a big supporter of the free market reforms of Alfonso, but criticized his other policies and blamed the recession on his rushed handling of the reforms. Simon is often famed for his promotion of free market economy in Sordland and his analyses of the economic boom in Arcasia. He wrote several books and articles on the economic inequality in the Marchian region, which earned him praise from economists both in Sordland and abroad. Simon gave his support to Rayne after the recession and campaigned with him throughout the whole election process. Eventually, he was appointed Minister of the Economy, Commerce, and Energy. So we're going to write him down as mostly just economist. Nia Morgna is a politician and attorney from the Sordish region of Bergia, who serves as the Minister of Justice and Law. She became a member of the United Sordland Party in 1949 and served as Vice Minister of Justice during the Alfonso administration. Before her political career, she worked as an attorney in Dare and also taught law in Dare University of Culture. Although she came from a wealthy family, they lost their assets in the nationalization plans of the 30s. Nia was a strong critic of Tarquin Sol's programs and vocal about her opposition to the Supreme Court's authority on state matters. Due to her expertise on Sordish law, she was appointed by Alfonso as Vice Minister of Law in 1949. During her role as Vice Minister, Nia is credited to the de facto running of the Ministry of Justice under heavy pressure from the Solist elements in the administration. She earned her reputation from her fight against corruption in the ministry among protests from the Supreme Court. She is regarded as one of the most experienced attorneys who worked for the government. She eventually gave her support to Rayne and was appointed as the Minister of Justice and Law in 1953. So, obviously law, but she is anti-corruption and anti-Supreme Court. I mean, not necessarily, but anti-Supreme Court power. There you go. That's more correct. And really, she's probably more... It does not explicitly say that she is reformist or anything, but she seems to... seems like she's on board with that. Josef Lancia is a Sordish national security professional who serves as Minister of Defense and Security of Sordland. He's been a member of the USP since its formation in 1929. Prior to his position as minister, he held the position of Inspector General of the Army, serving directly under Chief of Staff of the Sordish Army. He was a captain during the Sordland Civil War and served under the command of Sol before his presidency. He gained nationwide fame after his heroism and accomplishments as major during the Wayland Civil War, which also earned him the highest military order. I'm curious how we were involved in this. I don't think we read anything about their Civil War. We'll go through a history episode at some point. Josef became a popular figure after the war and still is well respected among nationalists. He is credited for several major military operations and known to be an influential figure in the Sordish armed forces. He's been promoting the reformation of the army into a professional rather than conscripted force. He was a big critic of Alfonso's policies. He gave his support to Rayne and lobbied for major conservative support in the 53 elections for the USP. Right. So he is, I mean, I guess he would probably be considered old guard. Old Goward. Ciara Walda. Ciara Walda is an academician and politician who serves as Minister of Education, Technology, and Research of Sordland. She became a member of the USP before the 53 elections. Prior to becoming minister, she was elected and served as an independent MP. As a member of the Assembly, Ciara has been aggressively promoting educational reforms and supported socialist policies. Although she has been targeted many times for her ideals, she remains to be a popular politician, particularly among women. She is a staunch supporter of women's rights and slowly gaining fame among reformists for her progressive rhetoric. Before her political career, Ciara taught philosophy and political sciences in several major universities, including the Lockhaven Business School and Dare University of Culture. She has written many academic articles, some of which were published in well-respected journals worldwide. Ciara joined the USP to campaign for Rayne's candidacy in an effort to reform the governing party. Okay, so we will put down Ciara Walda is reformist, education, and pro-women rights. David Vichy is a diplomat, ambassador, and politician who serves as Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Sordland. He became a member of the USP in 1949 after Tarquinsol's resignation. Beside his career, he is known by... I should also put down that Ciara was in an independent. That might help. Fuck me, I cannot write. Independent. Fuck. Right. Besides his career, he is known by many through his father, Artur S. Vichy, the founder of the Republic of Sordland. He entered the service of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1923 and worked on many positions at the various departments. Between 25 and 27, Vichy taught applied international law and disputes at the Faculty of Political Science of Dare University of Culture. In 1949, he was appointed ambassador to Stalport. David is still remembered for helping out 10,000 immigrants of Sordish and Bloodish origin while serving as consul general in Luco Lesbia in 1929. He became a respected name in diplomatic scenes in the Markian region. He has been promoting social democracy and human rights in Sordland for decades. David is also known for criticizing the United Sordland Party for oppressing the Bloodish people, acknowledging the Bloodish issue, which made him a target for the Solists and Nationalists. He eventually joined the party during Alfonso's presidency. Due to his connection to President Artur Rayne, David is still seen as a controversial member of the USP. He is known to be a nonpartisan and an opponent of Sol's policies. Although he publicly criticizes his own party, he worked closely with Rayne and became Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Okay, that is possibly going to be very important. So he is, I mean, I guess we could call him also independent in a way, right? He's an independent, pro-Bloodish, probably a reformist. He's also famed as an ambassador, so I should probably put that. Or famed, let's say famed diplomat. Diplomat. Alright, let's talk about his father here. Artur S. Vichy was a Swordish revolutionary, author, politician, and founder of the Republic of Sordland, who served as the first president of Sordland from 1923 to 27. His brief leadership modernized Sordland into a secular democratic republic. He was imprisoned by General Lutheran after the military coup in 27 and died tragically in prison when the building was set on fire during the Civil War in 28. Artur came from a wealthy family of the bourgeoisie and completed his education in Lesbia. He authored countless books that circulated all around Sordland, which were heavily inspired by the foreign writers of the Century of Revolutions, becoming an influential revolutionary figure in the country. He served as member of the King's Parliament as part of the Republican faction. In 1920, he led the Republicans and advocated for the king to step down, which led to the king's oppression of the Republican faction and tightening his control in the Parliament, which already acted purely as an advisory body. In the following years, Artur traveled from town to town and gathered public support for a full-on revolution in Sordland. In 1923, he marched with 100,000 revolutionaries into Holsword and was greeted by the first army that joined in with their march. In a matter of hours, the king abdicated the throne and Artur declared the end of the monarchy. Together with the members of the Republican faction, he wrote a new constitution and proclaimed the Republic of Sordland in 1923, marking the end of the Century of Revolutions. Following the rising influence of communists ahead of the first elections, General Lutheran led a military coup against Artur Vichy's government and ordered his arrest, blaming him for bringing foreign ideologies into Sordland. He was stripped of his position and remained in prison until his death in 1928, when a fire broke out in Holsword prison during heavy fighting in the neighboring streets. Many still claim this was a planned attack. General Lutheran. General Edward... It's amazing they don't have a picture for this guy. General Edward Lutheran was a Swordish military officer who led the military coup of 27 and fought in the Swordish Civil War. In 29, the Supreme Court ruled for his execution for leading the military coup in 27, obstructing democracy by deposing the President Artur Vichy and abolishing the Constitution. Edward Lutheran served as army chief in the King's Army before the Revolution. Later on, he served as general in the Swordish Armed Forces. In 27, following the left-wing riots in Sordland, Lutheran took control of the Third and Fourth Armies and led a military coup ahead of the first elections, suspending the Constitution and declaring martial law. He imprisoned President Artur and blamed the revolution for making Sordland a puppet for foreign powers. Later on, he ordered the execution of hundreds of communists. He promoted nationalist organizations and established the Young Swords to promote Swordish nationalism amongst the youth. Following the bloody incidents of his martial law, the public started to engage in armed conflict with the military, which, followed by General Ricard's intervention, led to the bloody Swordish Civil War in 1928, which lasted until 29, when Colonel Tarquin Sol took control of Holsword and declared the war to be over. Edward Lutheran was later found guilty of crimes against the Swordish state and was executed in 1929. General Ricard. General Yannick Ricard was a Swordish military officer who led the 7th Army in the Swordish Civil War. In 1929, he was killed in action during the Battle of Holsword while fighting against the forces of Colonel Tarquin Sol. Yannick Ricard was a general of the Swordish Armed Forces in 1927 when Lutheran led his military coup. He stayed out of the conflict until the execution of hundreds of communists and left-wing activists by the orders of General Lutheran in 28, which triggered the Swordish Civil War. He attacked Holsword with the 7th Army, capturing and holding it for 7 months. He supported the Red Youth with equipment to continue their fighting in the cities. In 1929, he was shot dead during... What? During Young Swords, what? Which resulted in the victory of Colonel Tarquin's 6th Army, marking the end of the Civil War. Okay. Gus. Let's talk to Gus Manger. Sure. Gus Manger is a politician and businessman who serves as Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development since 1949. He is the only member of the cabinet who managed to retain his position from the Alfonso administration. He is a member of the USP and previously served as an MP. Regarded as a successful businessman, Gus has made major investments in Anrica and owns a small business around the city, and owns a few small businesses around the city. He also holds a minority ownership of FC Anrica, the football club of his hometown. He is often famed for his successful agricultural policies and accredited for the long-awaited development of the rural regions of Sordland as minister during Alfonso's presidency. Prior to that, he worked briefly as an advisor for the Minister of Economy. He eventually gave his support to Rayne in 1953 and managed to retain his position as Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, which makes him the most experienced minister in the Rayne administration. Okay, so Gus Manger knows a thing or two about agriculture and rural development. So he, along with Lilius, might get along? Arvery. Arvery is in Agenland. Okay. Explains why she was so keen also to get us to develop that area. But wasn't Gus talking her down? Or was it Sol and Lilius? I forget that conversation, but who was supportive of this? I think Simon was supportive of the rail, but I also feel like Gus was opposed to her too, but according to this, he should have been on board with... Like, realistically, there should have been a 2-to-1 decision against the rail and promoting the highway. I still think what I did was the right choice, but... And finally, Pascal Benoual. Pascal Benoual is an author and Sordish government official who serves as Minister of Health, Social Affairs, and Labor. He's a member of the USP since 1942. His government career began in 1949 when Alfonso appointed him to the Sordland Civil Service Commission. He also served as president of the University of Valgan and Gelsord School of Medicine. So he... Where the hell is Valgan? Where is Dare? Where is Valgan? Gruni. Oh. Wait. It is artery that links the... Oh, so it... No, either way, it must be one of our cities. We'll go through our own cities in another video as well. Before his political career, Pascal wrote 8 books, one of which was a bestseller called The Unfortunate Man, where he tells the story of a family of poverty-stricken miners. He became known as a writer who depicts the struggles of Sordish life from a realistic frame, which brought him praise from the middle class and the civil rights groups. He was elected to the Assembly in 1945 and advocated for new workplace safety regulations and a workers' compensation program. He was an important force in the shaping of the nation's first social security policies. Initially a supporter of Alfonso's programs, Pascal eventually turned against the free market reforms and the president's management of them, stating it drained badly needed resources away from welfare programs. He gave his support to Rayne in 1953 and was appointed as Minister of the Elections. Okay, so Pascal Benoual is pro-labor. And social welfare. So he and Tiara probably also get along. Or is it Nia? No, Nia's her own. Okay, my god, that took a lot longer. So between these ones, I think we can probably get the next 3. Oh, fuck it, let's just do the whole thing. This is going to be a long one. Factions. Current factions. The Old Guard. The Old Guard are the Solists from the old administration who defend the status quo and promote conservative politics. Some claim that they established a deep state that controls the state apparatus. In Sordland, the term the Old Guard is referred to describe a group of influential individuals in government. While some call it an urban myth and dismiss it, others are claiming the existence of a wide deep state that controls the state apparatus. Rumors mention that certain key organizations harbor the leaders of the faction. It is commonly agreed that they were installed during the Sol era as a security mechanism. There is still no single public admission from suspected figures. Well, why would there be? Orso Hawker. Orso is leader of the Supreme Court and has established links with many in the administration. Is a Sordish politician, jurist, and current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Sordland since 1937. He graduated from Imperial Markian University in 1903 with a degree in legal theory. Later on, he started working as a public prosecutor and then as judge at the local district court of Erlery, until the fall of the Kingdom of Sordland. During the first government of the Republic, he started working at the Ministry of Justice, when he became an assistant and contributed to legislative planning and constitutional law. He joined the USP after the coup in 1929 and was elected a member of the Assembly. He was known to have close ties with Sol, who appointed him judge of the Second Supreme Court in 1933. After the death of the first Chief Justice, Gregor Marcia, Orso was elected to this position by the court in 1937. The Hawker Court handed down several landmark rulings that significantly transformed criminal procedure, taxes, and other areas of the law. Many of the court's decisions incorporated highly controversial policies of Seoul, and including the approval of the security packages law and ruling that the British Freedom Party entering the elections was unconstitutional, effectively removing the British identity from politics. Okay. As a staunch establishment supporter, he represents the majority of the Supreme Court and is regarded by some as the most powerful and divisive figure in Swedish politics. The oligarchs. The oligarchs are the few elites that have gained their riches by buying state assets cheap from privatization efforts and ended up holding vast industrial complexes. The consensus is that dozens of them are in the Lothar Group, and some even in the National Business Council. While it is true that they hold a vast amount of wealth in the country, they also often engage in foreign direct investments to secure their financial interests abroad. The oligarchs are the few powerful elite who control the majority of the wealth in Sordland. Their influence, both in and out of Sordland, have been growing due to the privatization efforts of the past. The Lotharberg Group was founded by Noel Tusk, who used to be the economic advisor to the King of Sordland. Currently, the spokesman of the organization is Walter Tusk, the grandson of Noel Tusk. Officially, Lotharberg has no clear structure or leadership, but the spokesman is considered to be the de facto leader of the entity. The group convenes every 3 months at Hotel Berg in the village of Lothar. The meetings are secret, but many analysts suggest the topics like the economy, security, and international politics are discussed. Most of its members are unknown, except for the speaker, Walter Tusk, who acts as an official spokesperson. Conspiracy theorists think that the future of Maricopa is decided at these conferences. The National Business Council is the official government structure that includes most of the leading business leaders of Sordland. They are participating in a cooperation with the government on improving the economic prospects. Many details, including state projects, incentives, taxes, unemployment, and the future of the country are discussed here. It is led by Mikael Avon, representing the private sector, and Simon Hall, representing the state sector. This council gathers when deemed necessary by the majority of its members of the two leaders. Mikael Avon is a Sordish businessman, economist, and statesman who serves as the co-chair of the National Business Council of Sordland. Born in Lenkurg, Agenland, to an Agno-Sordish family, Avon studied economics in the Lockhaven Business School before starting his work at Gassam. In the 1930s, he worked as a financial advisor and later as a project director at the corporation. In 1940, Avon started working at the Sordland office of the OMEC, where he contributed extensively to Agenland's economic planning. He gained nationwide reputation for his work in the city of Arvery throughout the 1940s, which helped the city go through an economic boom. Avon was later transferred to OMEC's Agnolia headquarters, where he oversaw the economic guidance of small Agnolian fishing settlements to transform into major economic centers. He gained international fame for his advice, which lifted Gilberdam from poverty, and was given the Medal for Meritorious Service by the Agnolian government. In 1949, Avon returned to Sordland by invitation from the Ministry of Economy and started his work for the government as an economist. In 1950, he was appointed as co-chairman of the NBC. Walter Tusk, spokesperson of the Lotharberg Group, which controls a huge part of the economy. Walter Tusk is a millionaire businessman, investor, and current spokesperson of the Lotharberg Group. He owns the Economists Group, which publishes the well-known newspaper The Economist, and is a major shareholder of Sordish steel company Burgess Steel. According to Lockhaven Times, he is the 8th richest Sword as of 1953. Walter began his career as an engineer after graduating with a degree in electrical engineering from Kings Hill University, one of the League of Trident. Okay, you feel like maybe that would be one of the things that should have a drill down into it. Later on, Walter established several small businesses with his friends from college, including a restaurant, a company that imported cigarettes, and a car wash business. After his successes as a businessman, he formed a very successful company that produced machinery parts and electrical wires, which earned him millions of Sordish ren. During the largely unregulated privatization of former state-controlled industries of late 1940s, Walter was able to acquire the shares of several important companies for a fraction of their estimated market value. He later became a shareholder and board member of the influential Lotharberg Group. He is credited for his large contributions into the energy industry in Sordland. Walter is also known for his international ties due to his investments in Lesbia, Agnolia, and Arcasia. Walter is generally regarded as leader of Lothar Group, and due to his connections, the most important businessman in Sordland. And yet, if it truly is a conspiracy group, he would not be the leader, he would be the spokesperson, merely the face. Okay, and the Reformists. The Reformists are the representatives in the government united under the call for democratic reforms. Over the previous years, they have been gaining popularity since the failed rule of the previous government. The loose alliance of reform supporters are backed by the largest opposition party, called the People's Freedom and Justice Party. There are many socialists, communists, and liberals who are in dispute about the future. Unfortunately for them, the unfair campaign finance system limits their chances of coming to more power. The more liberal faction in the United Sordland Party has also grown because of this. Well, our little veto there maybe helped them out a little bit. Franz Richter, leader of the PFJP and slowly becoming the face of a major united opposition. Franz Richter is a Sordish politician, businessman, and leader of the People's Freedom and Justice Party. He is also a major shareholder of the construction company Taurus Holding. Before his political career, that's actually probably important to remember. Because if he is also a businessman, see, in general, I am opposed to enriching these guys, but I don't want to support him too, because he's already charismatic enough, and I mean, not necessarily a threat, but while we do need to get on his good side, we don't need to help him more. Before his political career, he studied economics at Lockhaven Business School and worked for the Watchtower of Human Rights in Arcasia. After his return to Sordland in 1924, he formed a company that imported machine parts from Arcasia and made several investments into service and industrial companies. He helped open research and development departments in these companies and promoted innovation in Taurus Holding after he acquired its majority shares. He was also known as a notable human rights advocate in Sordland before he joined PFJP in 1932. He was famed due to his strong opposition against Sol after his military coup and was elected as leader of the PFJP in 1949. He promoted economic liberalism throughout his first years. During the 1930s, Friends led an opposition against the majority government of the USP with little gains. He was a strong critic of Sol's policies, labeling Sol as a dictator, which led to a state investigation on him. He started advocating social democracy and campaigning for reforming the democracy of Sordland in the 1940s, which led to a huge rise in PFJP votes. In 1949, he won 30% of the vote, barely losing the elections, which also contributed to a crisis within the governing party. He is sometimes credited as the real winner of the 1949 elections, which was followed by the resignation of Tarquin Sol in the same year and a strong change within the USP. After the election of Edward Alfonso, Friends kept his stance against the government and once infamously called him a puppet of the deep state, criticizing him for not upholding his promises of change. Although he was a strong opponent, he supported his privatization policies. Franz Richter remained as the leader of the opposition against the government in Sordland. He has been gaining more popularity over the last years and organized countless public speeches explaining the importance of democratic values and his plans for reform. So, the thing is, based on my own promises, our reform efforts, while we have common cause, I unfortunately don't think are going to bend my way. Primarily because my party seems to be reluctant, whereas his party seems to be all about it. So, if there were ever a shift in power, it would most likely be his way. Like, I and my branch of the party, the reformist branch, would join his party as opposed to anyone coming over to my party. Not necessarily a bad thing. Like, we have no love for our own party, obviously. I've already voted against them, but, you know, if the whole goal is to maintain my political career here, although, I mean, would I really be opposed to it? I don't know. I'm going to actually have to look at the political parties and see what they stand for, but if he is also, though, pro-business, we don't want to feed these guys. Even though he's a reformist, he himself could still be helping out the oligarchs. Let's look at the legislature. Okay, each of these does, in fact, have... Gloria Torrey. Let's look at the current Speaker of the Grand National Assembly. Gloria Torrey is a Swordish politician, member of the Assembly and current Speaker of the Grand National Assembly of Sordland since 1949. She's been a member of the Assembly since 1937. After graduating from Sword State University, Gloria was elected as president of the student organization Republican Youth. She supported democratic revolutionaries and was credited for organizing several major student rallies during the last years of the Swordish monarchy. Before her election to the Assembly, she worked at several jobs, including a lobbying firm and a school of public speaking and debating. In 1929, she became a member of the United Sordland National Committee from Vaysord. Gloria rose quickly in the USP after she was elected to the Grand National Assembly in 1937. She was appointed as a special advisor to the Minister of Interior in 1938 before being brought as the front bench spokeswoman for Home Affairs in 1942 and spokeswoman for Education in 1944. In 1949, she was elected as Speaker of the Grand National Assembly in protest against Alfonso's reformist agenda. She is the first woman in Sordland to hold that position. She was a strong critic of Alfonso's presidency, and she became famed for her obstructions in the Assembly of some of his policies. Regarded as a charismatic politician and tough negotiator, she is credited for major lobbying incidents within the USP which shifted the political landscape during the last decade. After the 1953 elections, she was elected Speaker a second time. Okay, we should probably write her down. So she seems... Is she part of the old guard then? Is she opposed to Alfonso's reforms? She's opposed to a reformist agenda, so I would say anti-reformist then. But she is largely influential, so... Let's put down influential. Okay, we've already looked at Richter Kisaro, chairman of the NFP. Kisaro Kibner is Swordish politician and leader of the National Front Party. Been a member of the Assembly since 1937. He represents the far right of the Swordish politics. Despite his views, he is respected by nationalists on both sides of the political spectrum. Before his political career, he was enrolled in a military school and graduated from Sordland State University with an arts degree. After briefly pursuing a career as a propaganda artist, he joined the Swordish Armed Forces in 1925. Although not verified by the state or himself, he was rumored to be the private who announced Lutheran's 27 military coup against the government of Arturishi on radio broadcast, which earned him great fame among the populace. So he's not just a nationalist, he's a fascist. Fantastic. In 1930, he founded the National Front Party together with a group of nationalists from Jen. During the 1930s, he took on a strong stance against immigration during the Wayland Civil War and was blamed by a significant part of the populace for inciting violence in the city streets against the Agno, Swordish, and Blutish people. He organized countless meetings, panels, and helped form nationalist student organizations in the top universities in Sordland. He had given notable support to the Young Swords organization from its founding to its expansion in the following years. In 1936, he was elected by the mayor of Jen, becoming the first mayor elected from the NFP. After serving as mayor until 1940, he was elected as a member of the Assembly in 1941. After the elections in 1949, Kesaro was elected as leader of the National Front and announced his bid for presidency. In 1949, Kesaro survived an assassination attempt, which boosted his popularity more than ever. He claimed the assassin was a Blutish separatist who wanted to erase Swordish identity. In the 1953 elections, he managed to get the best result of NFP in its history. Still not as big, but okay. Effectively becoming the third largest party in the Assembly. And Manson Leek is a Swordish politician of Blutish descent, member of the Assembly, and current leader of the Independents of the GNA of Sordland. He was leader of the pro-Blutish Workers' Party of Bludia between 1948 and 1949. He is a strong advocate for the rights of religious and ethnic minorities. During his education in Sordland State University in the Department of Literature in 1925, he faced political problems due to his Blutish background and his left-leaning views, which forced him to leave school without finishing his degree. He later enrolled in Dare University of Culture and graduated with a degree in Merkopen history. Oh, hey, we actually have another thing we can talk about then, since I also have a history degree. also from Dare. After the Ism incident in 1933 and the ban on the British Freedom Party, he returned to his hometown in Suzerain and campaigned to organize the British minority under a new democratic political movement. He was allegedly invited to join the militant British Freedom Front by Julian Arge. Julian Arge? I don't even know. Personally, he heavily protested against Arge's call for a full-scale insurgency in the region of Bergia, arguing that violence would only result in more violence. In 1948, he joined the Workers' Party of Bludia. The same year, he was elected to be leader of the party and ran as a presidential candidate in 1949. He coined the slogan, "Peace in Bludia, peace in Sordland, peace in the world." In the 1949 elections, he got 6% of the general vote, failing to pass the election threshold. He later resigned from his position despite protests from his own party and ran as an independent in 1953 to bypass the threshold. He was elected as member of Assembly in 1953. Okay. So hopefully my vetoing of that voting or the campaign finance bill will kind of help with that. Sure, let's talk about the Grand National Assembly. The Grand National Assembly of Sordland, usually referred simply as the Assembly, is the unicameral Sordish legislature. It is the sole body given the legislative prerogatives by the Sordish Constitution. It was founded in Holsord on September 9, 1923, in the midst of the September Revolution. The Parliament was fundamental in the efforts of President Artur S. Vichy and his colleagues to found a new state out of the remnants of the Kingdom of Sordland. It is currently led by the Speaker of the Assembly, Gloria Torre, who also represents the Conservatives within the USP. And finally, the Judiciary, the Supreme Court of Sordland. The Supreme Court of Sordland is the highest legal body for constitutional and judicial review. It examines the constitutionality in respect of both form and substance of laws, decrees having the force of law, and the rules of procedure of the GNA. If necessary, it also functions as the Supreme Criminal Court to hear any cases raised about the President of Sordland, members of the Cabinet, or presidents and members of the High Courts. The justices of the Supreme Court may hold their office during behavior. What the hell does that mean? The Supreme Court has the right to review enactments, both before and after a review, and it can invalidate whole laws or governmental decrees and prevent their application in future cases. The Supreme Court also functions as the second legislative body when a proposal to change the Constitution of Sordland passes the GNA of Sordland, giving them the final vote on constitutional changes. It is currently led by Chief Justice Orso Hawker, who was elected with a majority of 7-4 in 1937. We definitely don't want that. Definitely don't want that. So, the other notable justices, Heron Garachi, a jurist and politician who is currently serving as a justice of the Supreme Court. He has also served as Minister of Justice and Law from 1948 to 1949. Before his political career, Heron studied law at the Imperial Marcian University and later pursued a military career. As part of the King's Army, he held the rank of lieutenant until the dissolution of the monarchy in 1923. Due to his marriage with the sister of General Lutheran, he was implicated in the military coup of 1927 and the Sordish Civil War, but investigations were dropped during Sol's term as president. He joined the USP and became a member of the Assembly in 1929. He was a strong supporter of Sol and the establishment and became one of the leading members of the USP. He previously served as Speaker of the Assembly and an advisor to Sol. In 1945, he was appointed as Minister of Justice and Law by the President. After Tarquin Sol's resignation in 1949, Alfonso tried to isolate him within the party. In the same year, he was appointed as Justice to the Supreme Court. He became infamous for his obstructionist methods against Alfonso and his policies. Isabel Edmonds, a centrist. She's a Sordish jurist who has been serving as Justice of the Supreme Court of Sordland since 1949. She is both the youngest person to serve in the High Court of Appeals and first woman to serve on the Supreme Court. After graduating from Holsord State University Faculty of Law, she began her career as a judge, serving the cities of Conriat and Gelsord. She later became a supervisory judge in the High Court of Appeals in Holsord, later becoming a member in 1940. In 1949, she was appointed as a justice of the Supreme Court by Alfonso, becoming first woman to hold the position. Edmonds is regarded to be a firm believer in democracy and secularism and has spoken out against the oppression of the soulless state apparatus numerous times. She is known to be anti-communist and socially conservative. Okay. Well, Ania is now Does her position as minister make her a de facto member of the court, or is she just actually a member of the court? I don't know. Either way, I guess she's got a seat and therefore is on our side. So it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle, unfortunately. Alright. Well, that is enough reading for now. We will look at sort of everything local. We'll still look through our political organizations and the businesses and all that stuff. And then I guess, what else do we have? I mean, there's just all sorts of extra little things here. And we can go through the entire timeline of history at some point. But, okay. Well, we'll go through as much as we can here. I hope this is worth it. I really do. It seems like there is a lot put into this game, and I hope that it actually matters a little bit and isn't just there for flavor text to cover up a bare bones game. But I guess we'll find out. Anyway, I'm going to end this one here. I will see you next time.